Britain, brace yourself. In a country already divided over Brexit, immigration, and the cost of living, a new political firestorm has erupted, one that cuts right into the heart of freedom, privacy, and trust in government. This week, the Labour government under Prime Minister Keir Starmer pushed forward with its plan to roll out mandatory digital ID cards, a modern system they claim will secure the borders, stop illegal working, and give citizens easier access to state services. But then, out of nowhere, Boris Johnson stepped back into the spotlight. And in true Johnson style, he didn't whisper his opinion. He roared it. "I will never accept a government ID card." With that single declaration, Johnson reignited a political battle that Britain thought it had buried years ago. Suddenly, the digital ID scheme isn't just about technology, it's about freedom, surveillance, and whether the British people are ready to trust their government with their very identity. Before we dive deeper into this unfolding drama, let me remind you, this channel, Echo Britain, is dedicated to unpacking the truth behind the headlines. We bring you sharp analysis, dramatic storytelling, and the political context you won't get anywhere else. So if you're new here, make sure to hit subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and drop a comment with your thoughts. Do you support a digital ID card for Britain, or do you stand with Boris Johnson in total rejection? Your voice matters, and I want to hear it. Keir Starmer's government unveiled its flagship policy, the introduction of a digital identity card system for every legal worker in the United Kingdom. According to official government statements, the digital ID will prove a citizen's right to work and right to live in the UK, store essential details like name, date of birth, photo, and immigration status, exist primarily as a digital wallet on your smartphone, rather than a physical card, be offered free of charge to citizens and legal residents. The government's pitch is simple: Britain needs stronger controls. Too many people are working illegally, slipping through the cracks of outdated bureaucracy. With one universal, secure identity system, Starmer argues, employers will know exactly who has the right to work and who doesn't. To supporters, this sounds like progress, efficiency, modernization. To critics, it sounds like the death of privacy in Britain. Almost instantly, resistance exploded. Within days, over 1.6 million people signed a petition opposing the plan. Privacy groups warned of a Big Brother state where the government can track citizens at every turn. Cybersecurity experts labeled it a hacker's dream, warning that if all personal data sits inside one system, it becomes the biggest target in the country. And for many ordinary Britons, the issue wasn't technology, it was trust. After years of government scandals, from expenses to PPE contracts, from broken Brexit promises to failing immigration systems, why should the people trust any government, let alone Starmer's Labour, with their most sensitive personal information? It's in this climate of suspicion that Boris Johnson's voice cut through like a blade. When Johnson said, "I will never accept a government ID card," he wasn't just rejecting Labour's plan, he was reviving a very British tradition of defiance. Historically, Britain has resisted national ID schemes. During World War II, ID cards were introduced for rationing and security. But by 1952, they were scrapped after a famous court case proved they were being misused by police. Tony Blair tried to reintroduce ID cards in the 2000s. That effort collapsed under a storm of opposition, civil liberties campaigns, and spiraling costs. Now, with Labour's digital ID rebrand, the ghost of that old debate has returned. And Boris Johnson, ever the populist, knows exactly which side to stand on. By declaring his total opposition, Johnson positioned himself not just as a critic of Starmer, but as the defender of British liberty. And in doing so, he reignited a fire under the Conservative base, who have been desperately searching for a rallying cry in the wake of electoral defeats. The clash over digital IDs is no longer just about policy, it's becoming a cultural war. Labour's stance, digital ID is about order, efficiency, and security. They argue it's a modern solution to Britain's immigration crisis and public service chaos. Conservative reaction, figures like Boris Johnson and several Tory MPs are calling it authoritarian, un-British, and dangerous to personal freedoms. Reform UK and Nigel Farage, already sharpening their knives, accusing Labour of importing surveillance state policies from Brussels and calling it a betrayal of British sovereignty. Meanwhile, the public is deeply split. Polls suggest younger voters are more open to digital IDs, seeing them as normal in an age of smartphones and apps. Older generations, however, see them as an intrusion, a step toward losing the very freedoms Britain once fought to protect. Let's strip away the party lines and ask, what does this policy actually mean for Britain? Potential benefits: stronger control of illegal immigration, easier verification for employers, landlords, and even NHS services, a streamlined government system that could save billions in fraud and bureaucracy. Potential dangers: a single point of failure. If hacked, millions could have their identities stolen. The risk of function creep, where the card is first used for work, then for healthcare, then for voting, until it becomes impossible to live without it. The erosion of Britain's unique identity as a country without compulsory IDs, a tradition that has long set it apart from continental Europe. In short, this policy is either a bold leap into the future, or the first brick in the wall of a surveillance state. It's easy to dismiss Johnson as a political relic, a man whose premiership collapsed under scandal and chaos. But here's the truth: Boris Johnson still commands attention. His words still spark headlines. And for millions of Conservative voters who feel abandoned, he remains a symbol of defiance against Labour's centralising instincts. By opposing digital IDs, Johnson isn't just criticising a policy. He's rebranding himself as a champion of freedom and potentially setting the stage for a political comeback. Could Johnson use this moment to claw back influence inside the Conservative Party? Possibly. Could he rally public anger into a movement that forces Labour to retreat? Absolutely. History shows that ID cards in Britain rarely survive public fury. If anyone can weaponize that fury, it's Boris Johnson. This battle goes beyond technology or even privacy. It cuts into the soul of British politics. Trust in government: if citizens don't believe their leaders can safeguard personal data, no scheme will ever succeed. The surveillance debate: where is the line between security and liberty? Between order and freedom? The political landscape: Labour risks being painted as authoritarian, while Conservatives and Reform position themselves as defenders of liberty. And hovering over it all is the question: who controls your identity, you or the state? So here we are. Keir Starmer promises a new digital Britain, one where every worker carries proof of their right to exist inside a government-approved app. Boris Johnson stands up and declares he will never accept it, tapping into centuries of suspicion towards state power. And the people of Britain? They are divided, signing petitions in the millions, debating in pubs, schools, and workplaces, wondering whether this is progress or betrayal. The battle over digital IDs isn't just another policy fight. It's a test of what kind of country Britain wants to be in the 21st century. Do we embrace technology, efficiency, and tighter control at the cost of tradition and liberty? Or do we resist, keeping Britain one of the few democracies without compulsory ID, even as challenges mount? That, my friends, is the story unfolding before us. And as the voices grow louder, from number 10, from Boris Johnson, from millions of citizens, one thing is certain: Britain's debate over identity has only just begun. What do you think? Should Britain embrace digital ID cards as a step toward modern security and governance? Or do you stand with Boris Johnson and the millions who say, no government should ever own our identity? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'll be reading every single one. And don't forget, subscribe to Echo Britain for more dramatic breakdowns of the stories shaking our nation. Because this isn't just news. This is Britain's future. And it's happening right now.